Okay. I want to take a moment to introduce Susan Joy Proctor. She is an Ayurvedic practitioner who is here tonight to teach us more about her magic and and share some insight into the power of three Healy programs as well. So welcome, Susan. We're so glad to have you
Oh,
here tonight.
thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I was really honored when I heard from you a few weeks ago. And
Oh,
it's
beautiful.
also a reminder, I think, for all of us that we don't know who we're impacting in the world sometimes.
Isn't that
It's
true? Yes.
I think we sometimes, especially when people are, walking around feeling inadequate, we often don't know the people that we've impacted, that it hasn't kind of come around yet.
Yes.
Because I had no idea, that you had made that connection with me.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful reminder for even me personally. Today, I made a post that had something to do with the hardships of sharing on social media for me. And that is really mirroring back to me that reminder that even though there are some hard things about sharing on social media, that it's worth it for the people that you help and those connections that you make. So, what a beautiful reminder.
And I think there are people that we're meant to meet. I have a perspective about life. I have had it for a while that I'll just kind of offer. I see this whole existence that we've got going on here as soul theater, that all of the relationships and connections that we have are soul agreements.
Mhm.
And, we're really not we're not the characters in this play, we're the actors. And we forget that. But I believe, that we've all agreed to kind of be going through some of these experiences together, and that there are no accidents actually. But when the synchronicities show up, they're very validating.
Yeah, aren't they?
They're
They
fun.
very much are. Mhm.
They're fun. So let me start. I'll just give you a little bit of background history. I was telling Robin, I've been in the wellness field for many years. I've been an Ayurvedic practitioner for 30 years. When Ayurveda was introduced to me, I didn't know anybody else who had ever heard that name. And it was before quantum physics had really taken hold conceptually in our culture in any way. Even though it's not, not something that we're familiar with now, we know about it. We have some sense of energy. 30 years ago, nobody was talking that way. And it was really hard to explain about Ayurveda. And as I said to Marcus, because Robin and I were just chatting about that, and I'm not sure, I'll just mention, I was in San Francisco last week meeting with Marcus personally, with a couple of dozen people of a training that Doc Steve put together, and actually had dinner with him on Wednesday night and got to talk to him. And so I'm still just, coming down off of that. But I've been working with Ayurveda for 30 years. And when I met him the other day, Steve introduced me as an Ayurvedic practitioner, and Marcus asked me if I was from India. And I said, no, not in this lifetime. But my sense is that I've worked with this material before, because I've always had an understanding of it that transcended my training. And I say this with humility, because, I'm this Jewish chick from Brooklyn. I'm not from India in this lifetime. And I had a very profound understanding of Ayurveda, even to the degree that I really knew that what I had been taught was not the whole truth. That, across many thousands of years and, across cultures, things had been distorted. And it bothered me a lot, even 30 years ago, because I knew back then that someday I was going to have the opportunity to teach the world how to speak Ayurveda, and that I really needed to understand it. And it's taken me 30 years to really figure out how to describe this correctly. And I have a little bit of a presentation that I had put together for the Healy online retreat back in February that I thought might be good to share a bit of.
Absolutely.
Because some of this is, a little content-y. So if
I made you co-host. I think
okay,
you can
awesome.
share now,
I
but
should be able to share my
just let
screen.
me know if you need me to change
Okay,
anything.
cool. Because what I'll probably do is pop in and out, because I like to see faces.
I know, me
And
too. It's weird how it takes that away from you when you share your screen. It
a
drives
little
me
bit. So
crazy.
I pop in and out a little bit, but
Okay.
I'll go through some of this maybe a little bit quickly. But this is what I had put together back in February for Taryn's group, and it was really a wonderful honor to do that. So I was just introducing myself. My company is Get Your Juicy Back, because I specialize in working with women over 50 on natural hormone restoral. So Get Your Juicy Back is exactly what it sounds like. And I am here to tell you that it is possible to get your juicy back, and that the culture that we live in does not understand anything whatsoever about hormones. And that what I have to share, I often say, is relevant for women of all ages. I tend to focus on the issues of postmenopausal women, but the things that we can do to balance ourselves are true throughout our whole life cycle, and that they're very relevant for all of us. So that's what I've been up to. I got my Healy in May of 2020. I was one of the first people, because Doc Steve introduced me to it in February of 2020. And when he told me that Marcus was a Vedic monk, I practically wet myself. I mean, and when Steve showed me the device, what I said was, oh my God, the Atlantean medicine is back. I didn't know if we were going to see this again in this lifetime. So I've been like conceptually like all in from the beginning. This is the rest of my contact information. I put that here because at least at the other presentations, a lot of people wanted to reach out. And that last item that Robin, I don't know if we chatted about this, but as of January, I also have a TV show, an online TV show with the Win Win Women TV network, where I talk about all kinds of next level edgy wellness stuff, including energy frequency medicine. So it's a cool platform. So for just a bit of context about Healy and Ayurveda, as we said, Marcus Shmika is a Vedic monk, or he was for 12 years in India. We saw pictures last week of his incarnation as a monk. And the Ayurveda is one of what we call the Vedic sciences. The Vedas are the spiritual books of ancient India. And there are a number of Vedic sciences, Ayurveda being the medical form of it. Ayurveda is a Sanskrit word that means the science of life. Yoga is the one that we're the most familiar with here in the West. And yoga actually means to yoke our consciousness to the supreme consciousness. The physical postures that we think of as yoga in the West are just one branch of this spiritual science of yoking our consciousness to the divine consciousness. Then there's a form of astrology, Vedic astrology, that I will be mentioning more about, because it wasn't until I discovered Vedic astrology that I understood finally why I knew that the way I was taught Ayurveda all those years was not correct. Tantra, that probably many of us have heard of, is another one of the Vedic sciences that really looking forward to incorporating into Get Your Juicy Back for obvious reasons. And Vastu Shastra is something else that Marcus is very, he's an expert in, has written a number of books, and it's actually the Vedic form of feng shui. And I believe it predated feng shui. And some of the wisdom that he has from Vastu Shastra is what he's incorporated into the Mag Healy, which is the new product that's coming out that's going to be affecting the environment and not just the individual. So I like to offer this as a bit of a context in terms of how all of these pieces fit together, because in the West, most of us are not familiar. And this is very much his orientation, which was, really exciting for me to know about. So as I mentioned, Ayurveda is the science of life. It was revealed in meditation to rishis, to yogis thousands of years ago, wasn't determined in a lab. And there's a doctor in the United States who is, to me, the foremost Ayurvedic doctor here. His name is Vasant Lad, and he has a clinic in Santa Fe. And he describes Ayurveda as the descent of consciousness into matter. So we recognize that the body is just the densest expression of our consciousness, but it is not separate from who we are. And the implications of our caring for ourselves, in terms of our health, when we know that, we're not a body, but the body is us, is an expression of us. It's very different. And I think it helps us understand a lot, how healing works, that we're often, working on the level of the consciousness that manifests into physical matter. When I was at the show a couple of weeks ago at the American Academy for Anti-Aging Medicine, and somebody said to me, give me like a 10 words or less, explain to me how the healing works. And I said, all right, I'll give it my best shot. Remember Einstein said E equals MC squared? And he said, yeah. I said, we're working with the E instead of the M. And he was like, oh, okay. So this kind of gives us, it's all connected. Now, in Ayurveda, and probably many of you have seen this, this is not my chart. I have a better one, but this one is a little less complicated. So I like using it. In Ayurveda, the worldview recognizes that we live in an energy soup, as I call it, of 5 different elements of ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And we're pretty familiar with 4 of those here in the West, the air, fire, water, earth ones. Ether just means empty space, and it's the medium for sound and vibration. So in the East, when we're talking about energy and vibration, we need space to house and express that. So there's 5 elements. And the Ayurvedic way of looking at life is that these 5 elements express themselves in the life force in the form of 3 energy principles that we call doshas. That's my definition of a dosha. It's an energy principle. And the Sanskrit words are vata, pitta, and kapha. And they correspond basically to air, fire, and water. And the Ayurvedic view of disease is that almost all disease conditions are in excess of 1 or more of those energies, 1 or more of those elements, which makes, it's one of the things about healing that is just really awesome, because once we understand that, not only do we have dosha programs now, which, as an Ayurvedic, this is just unfreaking believable, that I can identify having a vata imbalance, and I actually have program to run to balance that. But as I'm going to be showing you a little further in this presentation, from my perspective, I understand other imbalances that from an Ayurvedic viewpoint, we recognize as either vata, pitta, or kapha imbalances. And there are lots of programs, other programs that address some of those things. I'll be showing you some examples of that. So the way the doshas work, they kind of describe everything. One of the things they describe is that we each have a very unique constitutional type, where usually one of those doshas dominates. As I said, my frustration was recognizing that about half the population didn't fit those 3 categories, and I knew something was overgeneralized. And like I said, it wasn't until I learned Vedic astrology that I found the answers to this, because only half the population corresponds to those 3, as I was taught. But I know how to find out exactly what somebody's constitutional type is based on their astrological chart, on their rising sign. And I've been writing a book about that with a Vedic astrologer for a number of years. And that's actually what I wanted to talk to Marcus about last week, and I got to do that. So I'll tell you about that later, but again, really thrilling. But I'm just curious. I'm going to stop the share for the moment, because is this brand new to anybody? Have you seen this before? Do you have a sense of what your constitution is? I'm getting some nods. So feel free to chime in. Or,
it looks
okay,
like
so Nina's saying it's new. Okay, that's awesome. Welcome. You're hearing it here for the first time. I'm honored to be the one to introduce it to you. Okay, so Lexi, it's also new but exciting. Okay, so this is really meaningful, especially I would say to those of us that are Healy users, because Marcus created this technology in this context. Okay, so Amanda, it's familiar but receptive ears. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, just wanted to get a sense of who I was talking to. So Amanda, so it's already familiar. Have you had an assessment with an Ayurvedic practitioner? Do you have a sense of what your primary constitution might be?
I do have a sense of what my primary would be, water. And I know this because based on my chart, most of my planets are ruled by Pluto. So I have a very scorpionic chart. This is what I know in my Western chart, however, but I do identify with the water element primarily. It was after a near-death experience that I just came across some Vedic literature at a thrift store. Wow. Yeah. I came across the Bhagavatam series. Yes. So I've been reading.
So you went hardcore.
I mean, universe told me to. It was beautiful. So I've been reading the cantos one by one, and I'm absolutely in love with it. And I feel very connected to it as well. So when you said I'm not from India in this lifetime, that felt like it resonated for me as well.
I'm just going to mention, because I shared this with Robin before you all got on, what I'm still just tingling about was when we were in San Francisco last week, again, you know, it was a small group, and I got to be there because of my relationship with Steve, and Steve introduced me to Marcus as the Ayurvedic expert that's been, you know, doing the trainings. And he started the meeting by saying that he starts the meeting with a special Sanskrit prayer that it happens to be a personal practice of mine that almost nobody knows. It's really obscure. And so I got to chant this really special thing with Marcus in this conference room last week. And I'm still recovering from that. Yeah,
that right. Is so special.
It was unbelievable. I mean, I got a text from Steve the next day going like, oh my God, you know, it was just priceless watching you chant with Marcus. So I'm still on that high and that energy that I'm able to share with you. Okay, so we're gonna go back, but one of the points I wanted to make is that we each have a very unique constitutional type, and that's one of the things that I've been trained to do, is to help people identify that, because we make completely different recommendations for how to live and how to eat for each of those types. You know, just, you know, as an obvious example, somebody that has an air constitution, we usually want to help them get more grounded because they're very airy. If somebody has a very fiery constitution, we usually want to help them cool off and reduce their intensity because that's their imbalance. For water, there tends to be, you know, more of a watery nature. Well, Lexi, I'm noticing what you're saying here. Vedic astrology is a completely different form of astrology from Western, actually uses a different zodiac. So while there could be coincidentally a correspondence, Western astrology uses the tropical zodiac, and Vedic astrology uses the sidereal zodiac. And in Vedic astrology, it's actually the astrology of your soul and not just your human life. And in fact, one of the things that is mind-blowing to me, and this is what I wanted to talk to Marcus about, is your rising sign is based on your time of birth. So it's not enough just to know the day you were born. You really need to know the exact time. And Vedic astrology is so specific that it's mind-blowing. And because of that, what I learned in my training was that in ancient India, Vedic astrologers and Ayurvedic doctors work very closely together, because you can literally see the cause of any disease condition in somebody's Vedic chart. You can see it. Like, is this karmic or heredity or nutritional or emotional or toxic, you know, is it toxins? Is like, what is it? You can actually see that in somebody's chart. So I literally woke up in the middle of the night a few months ago, and I realized that because that's true, if the Vedic astrological system was programmed into the Healy, then just knowing if the Healy knew your exact birth time, it would be able to read exactly what frequencies you would need in this moment. Like, I woke up in the middle of the night realizing that. And I know I called Doc Steve the next day to tell him, like, oh my God, I realized something really amazing. Yeah, I know. And he was like, oh my God, you know, we have to find a way for you to share this with Marcus. And that's actually what happened. Was Marcus called him on the phone a few months ago, said, I want to get to know you as a person because I see your trainings, and Marcus is here to raise the consciousness of the planet. It really matters to him, what people are about. And so they had an hour phone conversation, and Marcus asked Steve to put together this meeting for last week, and Steve told him about me because he wanted me to discuss this with him. So I actually got a chance to do that. And he told me, because he has, of course, studied Vedic astrology, that yes, he has already programmed the whole Joyce system. And I don't think he's as excited as I am about what I just told you, because he's really focusing on validating the science right now. And he said to me, I don't think people, really take astrology that seriously. Steve is Doc Steve. I don't know if any of you, he's the doctor in Los Angeles that brought Healy into the US. He's been using and teaching about energy frequency medicine for decades. And it just so happens, because this is Soul Theater, that Steve and I are second cousins, and that we've been personal friends for 53 years. We both come from large families. I have no relationship with anybody else in the family other than him. And this has been since I'm 13 years old. So, no accidents, no coincidences. This is just all part, like, I think we all signed up to play our part in bringing all of this forward. So that was a little bit of the background, and I actually got to talk to Marcus about that last week. So, like I said, still coming off that high. So that's one way that we look at the doshas, is our constitutional type. And another way that we look at the doshas is our imbalances, because as I said, that's the Ayurvedic view of disease. Like, I'm going to way oversimplify here, but it's still very reliable, is that almost all disease conditions are considered to be in excess of one or more doshas. One of the exceptions to that is cancer, which is not a doshic imbalance. It's an insufficient life force disease, which the microcurrent in the Healy addresses. I didn't know all these years, I was talking about chi and life force, that you could literally tune it up. It can be measured in voltage, and we get to do that whenever we run microcurrent. So just knowing what I just told you, we have in this little device kind of the tools to address almost all disease conditions, just from doshic balance and life force enhancement. Like, the power that we have with this thing is just unfreaking believable. And then another aspect of the doshas is they correspond to different life cycles. So childhood is water, kapha time, adulthood is fire, pitta time, and postmenopause is air, vata time. And as I was mentioning to Robin earlier, I mostly work with women in a vata time of life. It's kind of like we all have a filter on us at that time. But I can see that for this group, we're mostly in a pitta time of life. And pitta rules the endocrine system. So, when women are in their reproductive years, they're in a pitta time of life. And there are, some fairly common hormonal, and other things that go on that change at menopause. So we can also look at Ayurveda from that perspective of the life cycle. So I'm going to go back to some of the material. Go back here. And so here's a couple of clues. This is not in depth. This is just a superficial look at the constitutional types. This is my quickie way of looking at it. The three types, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, they're basically small, medium, and large. Vata tends to be slender and lean. Pitta is medium and curvy, and Kapha can be more heavy set. And in terms of some of the most distinguishing qualities, like I said, physical build is but mostly small, medium, and large. In terms of temperature, it's cold, warm, cool. So Vata people tend to be cold more than other people. Pittas tend to be warmer, and Kappas tend to be more cool. And in terms of tempo, it's kind of like the speed at which people live. Vatas talk really fast. They have a fast metabolism. They move really fast. Their nervous system is really high strung. Everything about them is fast. For Pitta, they're kind of more medium in terms of tempo. and Kappa, but in terms of tempo and metabolism, and Kappa tends to be more slow, more contemplative, slower speech patterns, slower metabolism. Again, I'm oversimplifying here. And this is where I'll say, this is what I learned. About half the population doesn't clearly correspond to this. There are people that I describe as poster children, for the doshas, but most people are a little more complex and interesting. But this gives you some clues. And actually, let me check back in. So based on that, is this kind of helpful in terms of like starting to get a sense of, yeah, I think I'm probably more that than that, at least? Okay, cool. All right, so we're gonna look at it from another perspective, which is that the doshas have not just physical qualities, but mental, emotional qualities. And so from a Healy perspective, because I was putting this, this presentation together for Healy women, and we are all either being or seeking to be leaders in this company. Each of the doshas actually has different qualities of leadership that would be most intrinsic to them. So for Vatas, they are blessed with creativity and inspiration and energy. Pitta, usually vision and determination and action, and Kapha, structure, stability, and reliability. And I think this is a valuable set of distinctions as we're building teams, because we ideally need all three. If somebody has a lot of inspiration and creativity, they don't always get things done. And then there's people who, are really good at getting things done, but they need something to do. They don't necessarily initiate those things. So, kind of obvious, but it's another interesting way to think about the doshas. And the term Prakriti means our true nature. So when we talk about Prakriti, we're talking about our constitutional type. There's another word that I'll be using called Vikriti. Vikriti is contrary to our nature. So those are our imbalances. And what I wanted to say about Healy and Prakriti that I think is really very important is, when I buy a bottle of herbs or supplements or anything and it says take 2, I never believe that, because that's the recommendation for everyone. I always use dowsing, and I recommend that people who have intuitive tools like muscle testing, I always ask very specifically for myself or a client or family member. I don't follow general recommendations. And that's something that, Dr. Steve and I talk about a lot. So my view is one size fits all doesn't fit anyone. So I have to say very respectfully that even the training resources and recommendations that we've been given about how to use the Healy, I think we need to be really careful to adapt for people. As an example, we were told, you can run up to 3 microcurrent programs a day. That's probably fine for a lot of people. And I know some Vata people with very, sensitive nervous systems that couldn't do that. I know people who can't use the microcurrent at all because it's too stimulating. And I know at the other end of the spectrum, some, really big, solid guys, muscular, Kapha, grounded people that they could probably run 5 a day and be fine. Vata, because of the qualities of Vata, of being, light and dry, people with a Vata constitution and Vata imbalances really need more hydration and grounding than other people. So ideally, we need to hydrate. Yep. Yeah. Amanda's reminded. It's always good. I remind myself when I say this, time for water. But Vata people need even more water and even more grounding, where Kapha people need less water and less grounding. Not discouraging, them from using that, but just a reminder that we really need to look at ourselves, and our individual needs. I'm going to be mentioning the power of 3, obviously. But the other thing that I think is kind of an important distinction, and I was very aware of this when I was at the trade show recently, if I'm doing a demo for somebody, if I'm running a pink dot program for them to try it for the first time, I want to give them an experience that they will actually notice. And so I notice that if somebody is a Vata or Pitta constitution, I can kind of pick that up, that they're faster and more intense. I would usually offer them a relaxed program in the gold, because if I'm doing a pink dot, I would only start them off with a gold program if they haven't used frequencies before. And if I see that they are more of a kappa person, that the energy program might be more, of a discernible experience, I'll usually suggest that, or I'll ask them, would you benefit from being more relaxed right now or be more energized? And that's how I offer a demo. And I think that's a really good tip to offer here. And then the power of 3, as we know, is the group that came out 6 months ago that includes some programs about Ayurveda. So let's talk about those a little bit. Do I have something here, or I don't have anything here, but I'll tell you what I do know. The Power of 3 came out as 9 programs, 3 groups of 3, with a recommendation of using it that was different from anything that we had heard before. That it was a 9-week program to run, one of them Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which I, again, understand from Marcus. That's how Nuno Nina runs programs. He's a minimalist. And he usually recommends running only 3 programs a week and allowing the body to assimilate the frequencies. So I think Marcus kind of adopted that. And of the 3 groups of 3 programs, the first ones were all about conflict resolution in the body and in the cells and in the gut. And I remember when he first presented that, he said, these days, there's so much of that going on in the world that, we ideally want to resolve conflict in our own bodies first, so that we're contributing more, harmony to the collective. So that's my understanding of what those programs are about. One of the groups is called Classical Physical, Classical Energetic, and the Zapper Protocol. The 2 classical programs are actually Carolyn McMakin's programs. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, they're not. Scratch that. They're the Rife programs. I was mixing that up with what's going into the Mag Healy. But those 2 groups were actually corresponding to Rife frequency programs that many people are familiar with. And then the Zapper protocol, that is quite exciting, is Dr. Hulda Clark's anti-parasite program frequencies. And we were told that that can be used independently, not just in the 9-week thing. So that was the second group. And then the third group are the dosha programs of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And one of the things that I really did want to know was from Marcus was, how did he put those together? Like, are these to balance the constitutional doshas, or are they, the prakriti, or are they to balance the vikriti, the imbalances? And I actually got an answer. He said, well, the doshas are about imbalances. And I realized that, again, classical Ayurveda never did a very good job to me of describing our constitutional type. That's something that the astrology will do. But the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha programs in the Power of 3 were designed to balance imbalances of those doshas. And it's really amazing that we can do scans and see if one of those are out of balance. And I've been seeing those lately for myself. So I know the Power of 3 was mostly what kind of the reason we were getting together tonight. That's my basic explanation of those programs. I have a good deal more to say about Ayurveda, but I just figured, let me check in to see if that was clear about that program group.
Yeah, I took a few little notes there for us as well, that you said the second group or the second line, those ones are meant to be used outside of the 9-week protocol as well as in the 9-week protocol.
What I said specifically, that again, I'm passing on information that I was told, is that the Zapper protocol can always be used as a standalone. Okay. And my sense is that once I completed the 9-week program, I still run scans. I still, of course, have the Power of 3 come up on some of my All Healy program scans.
Yes.
And I sometimes will specifically, do a power of 3 scan when I'm feeling, I think one or more of my doshas is out of balance, and I want to take a look at that because that'll come up there and
Yeah.
literally say, oh, Pitta 68%, I'll run the Pitta program, especially since that is my primary constitutional type. I would have a tendency for that kind of imbalance. So this is mind blowing to me as an Ayurvedic practitioner that we actually have programs to balance the doshas. Lexi, the 9-week protocol, since that's a question, I did open up the Healy flyer about the power of 3. So I'm going to show that to us now so we can look at it together and answer that question better than I could just answer it on my own. Let me go back and open it first. Power of 3. Okay. So this is the Healy flyer about the power of 3. It's in your back office. You're still on mute and it's in your back office. Those are our 2 mantras, right? for these times. So there's 3 groups, each containing 3 programs. So there's the bioenergetic rebalance, the conflict ones, the universal frequencies that include the Rife programs and the Zappa protocol, and then what he's calling digital Ayurveda, which I just think is really awesome. And what it says here is combining a systematic analysis of current collective processes and classical universal frequencies. The Power of 3 programs are designed for a special 9-week application protocol. They need only be applied once a day on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, additionally to any other Healy programs you're currently using. So that's what I did when I first got the subscription, for those first 2 months. I ran each of those in that way. And now I just use them on scans and for the dosha programs if I'm feeling that. So does that, Lexi, does that help? And again, that was a little different from the way we were advised to use any other programs. So I thought that was interesting. Power of 3 come to the highest resonance. Interesting. I love that group. It just feels kind of extra special somehow. Okay, let's keep going. So as I was saying, let me go back to this share. So I was saying the Vikriti are our imbalances. And as I was describing, the Ayurvedic view on disease is that it's either excess doshas or insufficient life force. And of the excess doshas is actually 6 stages of disease progression. So, you start out with a little excess vata, it was level 1. And then the way it works is people don't usually get sick until level 4. They don't usually go see a doctor till level 4 or 5. So we have an amazing opportunity to practice prevention here. And this is what I meant when I said earlier that I knew that someday I was gonna, have the opportunity to teach the world how to speak Ayurveda. After a while you can kind of tell, oh, I'm feeling excess vata today. I have a speeded up dry experience. Or I'm, pitta today, I'm feeling hot and irritable and, have a skin rash. I mean, they're very specific symptoms that go along with these imbalances. And it's fairly easy, especially now that we have these programs to reverse them. But, historically, we've used food and herbs and lifestyle practices and essential oils to balance these things. Now we also have the Healy, which is incredibly awesome. So the imbalances that go along with each of the doshas, for vata, the qualities are cold, dry, fast, and variable. So if somebody is really vata, we actually call it vata deranged. They're going to be very ungrounded and cold, and we've all met people in a very hyper state like that. That would be vata, and that energy builds up in the colon. So one of the first signs of excess vata is literally gas, too much air in the colon. Here in the West, people say take, Beano, And in Ayurveda, we say, oh, there's a mismatch between what you're eating and your digestive capacity. We want to, we want to align that before that imbalance gets further. So that's how we look at Vata. And the balancing qualities for Vata are warm, moist, and grounding. So if we're thinking of that in terms of food, soup is like the perfect Vata kind of food. It's warm, moist, and grounding. For Pitta, the qualities of imbalance are hot. So if somebody's, got a rash or an infection, any inflammation, any itis is Pitta. So it's hot and oily and sour, and it builds up in the stomach. Now, Pitta is fairly easy to identify. Any infection, any inflammation, any itis, any rash, anything with the skin, any eruption, anything green, Pitta. And then for Kapha, it's the qualities are cool and slow and dense, and Kapha builds up in the lungs. So Kapha is the things that the doshas govern. Vata governs movement and circulation because of the air. Pitta rules digestion and metabolism and the endocrine system. And Kapha is responsible for lubrication and structure and cohesion in the body. So we all have all three. And we're all born, like I said, with different proportions of them. And balance for each of us is very unique. And again, the language, once you learn it, is very easy to recognize of, too much of this or too much of that. And again, we have all these wonderful natural remedies to bring them into balance. So where soup would be the ideal food to balance Vata, green vegetable juices would be ideal for Pitta. They would cool and cleanse the blood. And for Kapha, actually the most balancing things are spicy, because hot spices actually warm things up and speed them up and increase the metabolism. And again, scanning with the power of 3, we can see, if something shows up, I run the program, like we all know, trust the Healy. So isn't this awesome? Like, is this not freaking awesome? I know. And here I've gone into much more detail about Vata imbalances from a practitioner perspective, things that we would, assess, because we don't diagnose in Ayurveda, we assess conditions that would include anxiety and nervousness, insomnia, nervous system disorders, colon issues, osteoporosis, degenerative diseases, and a throbbing kind of pain. So I'm making some suggestions here of programs that could be appropriate for those conditions. Somebody knows they have Vata going on, and makes sense, right? Based on what we know. Now that we're having a slightly different set of filters. Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense now that we're speaking this language. Cool. For Pitta, the issues would be like inflammation, infections, and allergies, rashes and skin stuff, blood issues, liver issues. Liver is a Pitta organ, eyes and vision, endocrine and hormone stuff, hypertension, and a burning type of pain. So again, I'm making some suggestions here of programs in the Healy program groups that would be appropriate to be looking at for those issues. Again, we're looking at it from a Ayurvedic perspective and not just, randomly at this point. And for Kapha, some of the issues that we would identify would be overweight and diabetes, respiratory and lung stuff, mucus, non-malignant growths, stagnation, and dull pain. And these are some of the programs I would identify for those. And I left out something I meant to add here for the respiratory stuff, the breath of life in the deep cycle. That would be another really good one. And there's literally a program called Chilling in one of the bioenergetic harmonies, and it's about mucus. So if somebody has a Kapha constitution, these might be programs that they would want to be considering for those types of issues. And that was most of like the content stuff that I wanted to share, but I'm glad I had that to show you, because that works better, I think, visually than auditorily, with, to be able to actually see it. So I'm happy to answer questions. Or Robin, was there anything else you wanted me to cover?
Wow, Susan, you did such an amazing job diving into all of that for us. And
Thank you.
I know a lot of us are feeling very activated by what you're sharing, just as you made me feel the first time I heard you sharing about this. As you were sharing, I had this memory of the first time I heard you speaking about this back in, I was the weekend of my daughter's birthday, January 20th, that weekend that we did that retreat. And I actually had left Healy for a little while and was just, my dog had passed away. I was just having some bad taste in my mouth about some things with Healy, and listening to you speak that day showed me practitioners speaking about Healy and not just talking about the business opportunity of it. And you called me back into this space. And I feel like I need to tell you that as I was remembering how much you activated me by hearing you speak about Ayurvedic, just the way of looking at the world, and how you see Healy applied to the world is, and you and I have had these conversations as well, is just so nice to meet another soul that is looking at it the way that I am. And I know so many people on this call and who will be watching the recording that they're gonna get that feeling of activation from you, because it's so beautiful to see somebody seeing this tool and how it can be applied to help everybody in their life. But with your knowledge and background, how you're sharing this, it's just like lighting my soul up right now. And I am watching everybody else be lit up as well.
Oh, Robin, I really, this, we're breathing some very rarefied air here, in this group. And I'm pretty comfortable being a mushball at this point in my life. So I'm very, very touched. And it reminded me of what I said earlier, like, we don't always know the impact that we're making on life. Sometimes we feel beaten up and we have a bad taste in our mouth, and I'm not, by the way, in any naive place. I was, saying to Robin earlier, I have, some real serious issues with the lack of customer service. I have an entrepreneurial vision for myself and Healy that the current structure will simply not accommodate.
Yes.
And I was telling her that I'm glad that I'm connecting with people where I think some of my perspective, can be shared meaningfully. But I realize that if Healy isn't going to set up the right support, there's nothing to stop me from doing it. The potential for bringing this into the practitioner community is so unfreaking believable that I will get people to invest in me setting up a customer service unit out of the Philippines to do this correctly.
Yes.
Like, I'm serious about this.
That's so beautiful to hear. And I know a lot of people on our team right now and who will watch this recording are going to be singing your praises for saying that, because that is something we all feel a lack in Healy. And part of why we've all come together as the Frequency Mamas to support each other through all the tech issues that we have, all of the customer service stuff that we feel. And it's just beautiful to hear that other souls are noticing the same thing. But rather than us all running away from it, I love how Susan is saying, and her and I talked briefly about this, this gives us this space to fill. And this gives Susan this opportunity to say, I'm not going to run away with Healy. Instead, I'm here to make big changes with Healy, because you see a deficit that they could use your support in. Just like myself felt there was a deficit in training about the Healy, and have come in with my group here. And all I'm doing is training and finding new ways to train you guys, because if we can help people learn that this isn't some little benign device, but that there's so much power behind it, and even more power behind it when you know how to wield it correctly, we can all change the world together. And isn't that so magical and amazing?
It is. And I came in on a red eye Thursday morning, and we had a regularly scheduled team meeting for Thursday night that Clive and I were like, I don't know if I can do this. And I said, we'll have a short one. I want to share the energy with the rest of the group, of what just happened. And one of the things I heard myself say that night, because my team has been around for a while and we've been waiting for Healy to get their act together.
Yeah.
And things are way better. I mean, like I lived through the first, bumpy lockdown, people waiting, for months stuff. And without the mental balance programs, I'm not sure how we would have survived that period of time, frankly. So, we lived through that. And my group has been waiting around to move forward. And I said, I think we have to move forward even without that. And I can't be somebody complaining anymore. I need to be part of the solution. And I've really given this some thought, and I've bounced it off some people who are not on my team who have said, I would invest in that. I would be happy to pay, given that I shouldn't have to,
Right.
but since I do have to, I would be happy to pay for that level of support. Because, in my banking career, I was, my functional title was relationship manager. I was the senior account officer at Bankers Trust Company for the entire mobile corporation retirement system. And the buck stopped with me. And it's very frustrating that there are things that happen here that I cannot do anything about. That people complain and things are not responded to, and I cannot make them happen. And I want to hire somebody to navigate the customer service system right now and be the person to, follow up on the customer service tickets, because I'm as frustrated as anybody.
Yeah,
And
there
I cannot represent this to the world. I cannot.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. I cannot talk to a doctor this way.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the consensus last week at the meeting of the other practitioners that I met in San Francisco is, oh, we love the Healy, but we can't sell it. And Marcus is not going to be able to fulfill his vision unless we can bring this out there. And he has a genius in the area that he has a genius in. His rising sign is Aquarius. He's a paradigm shifter.
Yeah.
My rising sign is Leo. I'm supposed to be a leader. I'm supposed to be bringing people together, and I'm an entrepreneur. So, I have a perspective of, okay, what is it going to take? And to get that kind of service out of the Philippines is very inexpensive.
Yeah.
And we could share, and I'm actually looking to like set this up as a third-party thing that I will outsource and offer to the rest of Healy World, that you can pay me to run this for you if Healy's not going to do it.
Yeah, how beautiful. Well, Healy should just hire you.
And I'm open to that. I'm open to that too. To the way all of this lined up, I didn't plan this.
You're right. Yes.
But I think the more we let our light shine, the more it will be viewed. And none of us ended up in this conversation by accident.
Yeah.
Britton, you had your hand up. Did you want to share or ask or something? And you're still on mute.
Sorry, I'm not good with technology. I had a question about the Power of Three protocol that I haven't been able to find. I don't know if I'm the only one, but my Power of Three, it must have had an update, and mine has a 10th program called Rebalance, I believe. How is that added in or applied, or do you have any
It's a
insight?
really good question. I have no idea. And I forgot to ask Marcus last week. I have that too on my pink dot. It's still not on my blue.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's on I noticed it on the pink dot when in the group we were talking about the Power of Three, because I've used it, and I've actually had I misused it by accident doing the whole protocol because there weren't great instructions. And of course, after that, I found them, and I had a really big physical reaction to it. And thank God I have a really great chiropractor who does energy work and stuff to help me kind of rebalance that. But it was one of the things that while I'm sensitive and could already really feel a lot from Healy, I was like, oh, wow, this really can shift a lot of things. And other people were trying to figure out how to use it properly as well. So in a sense, I was glad I had that experience so I could share that, but I don't know how to apply that last one. Sounds benign, but yeah,
And
so
this is a frustration that,
yeah.
you know, and I think everybody is well intentioned,
Yeah,
and
it's
they,
kind of
they
micromanagement doesn't work very well.
well, I'm going to offer a different perspective, and this is another tangent, Robin, that you might find very interesting for your group, and I'm happy to send this to you. I lived in Australia for a couple of years a while back. Is that where you're calling in from? Oh, I lived in Melbourne, and my ex-husband, who was part of my Healy team, is still in Australia, and it was a wonderful experience. And I was introduced to something when I lived there, an entrepreneurial system called wealth dynamics that's actually based on Chinese energetics. And it identifies 8 different entrepreneurial styles and 8 different ways that people can create wealth. And it's based on your energy. It's not something that you choose. So it's almost like your constitutional type. It's who you are. And when I learned about that, it was pretty life-changing, because it showed me what I was good at and what I sucked at. And as an entrepreneur, most of us try to do everything, and that's a mistake. In a perfect world, we find out what our lane is and we stay there, and we master our superpowers, and we collaborate and outsource everything else. And that is the way I like to look at the world. And I found out, I have almost all of my energy on one side of the equation and nothing on the other. And tech stuff I just can't handle. That's one of the challenges I've had with Healy. Like, if something doesn't work, I just can't, So I made sure that I had people on my team that, we're good at that stuff. I'm good at the people stuff. I'm like very good at the people stuff. So in this model, there are 4, it's a square. And I'm going to send this to you, Robin, because I think it'll be very insightful for you as a leader, as well as, helping to mentor other people to find their lane.
Yes, I would love.
And I've been doing that. So in my work, the combination of somebody's Vedic rising sign and their wealth dynamics thing is like the clearest picture of what we're here to do and how that, and everybody on my team, frankly, has said, Susan, I've done so many other personality tests in my life. This is the most illuminating by far. And it helps me see who to reach out to. The wealth dynamic thing, there's a free ebook that I'm going to send to Robin for her to share with you. And you'll probably get a pretty good idea of it. There is a test that one can take that costs money. And if anybody's interested, I, have a affiliate relationship with the company, and I had them do a special webinar last year for my team, just about how this relates to network marketing, and, how we can each succeed with our superpowers in an environment like this. And I went off on that tangent because, so on the square, what it shows is that there are 4 main questions that people can excel at, and that companies can be really good at. There's 4 main questions: what, who, when, and how. This company is so strong in the what. What we have is off the freaking chart. Marcus is a creator. He's all about the what. And I heard him, and I was with him, and I could see what's important to him. Mastering this thing, creating this stuff, getting it validated by the scientific community, that's his focus. So Healy is very strong at the what, and it's pretty good at the how also. They suck at the who. They don't understand the people. They don't understand, and I think they mean well, but that the management is not looking at that, and they're not very good at the when either. So we could actually probably take this filter and look at many organizations and say they're stronger in some areas than others. My point is, I'm so strong at the who, and there are other people that are as well. I think Taryn is very strong at the who, and she's going to be there this week, and I know her, and she's, I want to talk to her about this. Like, she has more input than I do at this point. Like, we need them to understand that this is a people business. It's an awesome piece of technology, but it's people that use it. So again, in my generation, we said, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And to me, this is like way too important for me not to be part of the solution. So I think you'll find that really interesting, Robin. And I'll be curious, and the way it works, I'll just share when you read it. Each person has a primary wealth profile, and the two next to it adjoining it. So it's a little easier to see which three we have than which one.
Okay.
So I'm a supporter. I'm in the middle, but I'm also have a lot of star and deal maker. Those are the two next to it. So it's often easier to be able to see which three we've got. And almost anybody I've ever shared this with was like, oh my God, this gives me such a clearer, understanding of, what I'm here to do and why I shouldn't try to do things that are not my strengths. It'd be way better to partner with somebody who's great at that already, or to hire somebody so that I can do what I'm really great at.
I love that. We are planning some training on human design, which shares some of these things as well. Yep. And I think what you just shared, combined with people learning about their human design, could literally be their ticket to finding their exact voice to share.
I've been working
but
with
also
human design as well.
Life. Yeah. Oh man. I mean, I think these things are putting those together are going to be very powerful for our team. So I really, really appreciate you sharing that little bit of information.
I'll say I love human design, and it's very complicated. These things that I'm sharing with you are much more straightforward.
Yes.
And I'm a Leo supporter, and I am finally living out my destiny. What I'm doing these days is a really great expression of Leo supporter. And with all of my team members, I'm going like, you're a Virgo creator, this is how you can be navigating, and you're a supporter Libra, like you're all about connecting. I want you to be an affiliate of mine. I want you to fill my programs. And she's going, awesome. That's what I've always connected people. I never was paid for it. I said, well, now that you know that that's your role, put yourself in situations where you get compensated. You're an outstanding affiliate.
Yeah.
You're not creating stuff, you're not implementing stuff, but you're connecting people. That's the value that you have. So it's really, really cool. I'm looking at the time. I know a lot of you have kids, and I'm still kind of catching up. But what I want to mention, Robin, and I'm open to, coming up with some creative stuff. Obviously, I do individual consultations if anybody wants to work with me. And the other thing that I work with is the blood type science. So when I do individual consultations with people, it's their Ayurvedic constitutional type and their blood type. So the system that I have is awesome for well-being.
Yeah.
And I'm 66. And I have been living the things that I do. And I told you, Robin, I eat meat and I, drink wine. I don't have I don't have the same kind of lifestyle that Marcus has, but I have a very good understanding of how I function and how to care for myself. That really is awesome. So I have a hormone balance specialist and a weight management specialist and a hypnotherapist and an NLP practitioner. So I have a lot of tools for working with women, and I offer that. And I also did a class after the retreat where you met me. I had put together an evening class called Ayurveda for Goddesses that was sharing all of the constitutional stuff with the astrology and the archetypes. That was really super exciting. So I was offering that. And if for anybody that has their birth information, I can get your chart and tell you exactly, what that is. And people are still buying that class on my website, and getting the recording and having a little mini session with me. So that's also available. And if what we're doing is of interest to your group, and it looks like it is, I'd be happy to talk about putting together a paid workshop that would focus specifically on the interest that you have, perhaps also offer it to other healing women. But I really want to do more for healing women
Yes.
because, we have a focus that we share. And this is just joyful for me, as you can see.
Oh, so beautiful. Thank you so much for those offerings. I will connect everybody to what you've just shared to your website and all of that information
Okay,
in our
cool. Thank
WhatsApp
you.
group. So they all have that so they can reach out and access that. And that sounds like something beautiful in the making to offer all of us. I love that idea of a course diving deeper into this with you.
And it would also be great at some point to have you guys here in Florida for some getaway that we could do together, where I actually get to feed you.
Yes.
One of my, I'm all about food, by the way. Like, I'm a foodie, and one of the things about my events is I used to do all the cooking because I have like a very specific nutritional philosophy. Like, I'm a really good cook, and many of the I'm not gluten-free or vegan, but many people in my audience are. So my events always accommodate that. And I had a weekend retreat at a hotel on the beach a few years ago. It was actually a cannabis wellness education program. It was for women. And we were learning about cannabis all weekend. It was quite fun.
Cool.
And I was making arrangements at the hotel. It was at a Wyndham. And I said, this is so hard for me because I've always, done my own catering and I have a very specific philosophy. And they said, no problem. Give us the menu and recipes that you would make and we'll make them for you. And they cooked my food.
Wow.
Like,
that must have been really amazing.
It was amazing. I have these amazing chocolate zucchini muffins that are so delicious that if you didn't know they were good for you, you wouldn't know, but they're not only gluten-free, they have no grain at all in them. They're like all superfood ingredients. And the hotel made them, and people are still, a few years ago, still like talking to me about those muffins. So there's literally the ingredients for a lot of fun and a lot of value that we can create together.
Yes,
and I think that, for me, this is the way I want to be able to introduce other people to Healy, even is, come be part of my community. Like, we're building something really beautiful here. The network marketing aspect has never been the part that resonated with me. There's some great things about the structure that I think, we can leverage. But, I'm really interested in making it work for us way better than it does already. And I'm glad to be having this conversation, because we're all coming from that.
Yes. Yes. So all very exciting. And I can't wait to see what unfolds from all the connections that we're making, and everybody is sparking ideas. And it makes me, and I know a lot of people on our team, feel really validated in hearing your frustrations and that you have big plans for the future and how you're going to help Healy be better. Just like we've all been trying to figure out how we can play our own roles to make Healy better to the outside world and how it looks. So it makes it easier for us all to share its magic with others.
Well, some of it, I think, is we need to do these kinds of trainings because I've been hearing from a lot of women from other teams or women that like bought a Healy and never got any support. They bought it at a trade show and nobody ever showed them how to set it up. And I said, I think I need to do that kind of training, not just because I'm a nice person, but I told you I have an ulterior motive. This is my business, is doing events for women. And this is kind of a captive audience that I have some unique value to share. And, especially on Zoom, it doesn't cost very much. So we can share a lot in a way that's cost effective.
I very much resonate with that. That's why all of these women are here today, because of the call that I had, realizing that, there wasn't training, and this wasn't okay that there wasn't training. But I saw that as an opportunity for me to get to teach more people, because I really love to teach about energy work, and I love to teach about help people activate the healer inside of them, realize that they are inside of this beautiful self-healing vessel that they just need to have the right tools to activate. so meeting other people who see that same need, it is beautiful to all of our ears, because every one of these women are part of our group that trains all the time, that has resources all the time. And what I love is how everybody gets to bring in their trainings, everybody gets to bring in their magic, because it's such a cool team of people coming together and all leveraging what we're good at, what we're not good at. And I love how you said earlier, if you're not good at this part, don't spin your wheels trying to be good at it if that's not within your makeup. Instead,
I'll tell you
tell you
very specifically, because like I said, everybody excels at different questions. And I learned this like 14, 15 years ago, that I'm all about the who and I suck at how. Like literally on the test, I had 0 in that quadrant, 0.
Wow.
And I realized I used to get stuck in my life. I'd be going along, I have all these ideas, and then I wouldn't know how to take the next step, and I would just completely stop.
Yeah.
And when I learned about this, I completely re-educated myself, honestly, that my how is always who, because my network is so strong. I am never more than a phone call away from an answer, ever. And I've created my life that way, and I cultivate it. I mean, we're just meeting for the first time now, but you have a sense of me. I invest in the relationships in my life. And as I get to know, I know what I have to offer, and I know what others have to offer. And so I don't get stuck anymore. And I made sure that I had people on my team that loved the tech. Because I can't handle it, like that's not a job I'd be willing to do for any amount of money, honestly. But nobody else can do what I do, like I have nobody can do what any of us does. In fact, I'm going to just blow you away with one more thing, since you seem so open. In fact, I have my laptop perched on a bunch of books, and I'm going to show you one of the books.
Okay.
It was written by a friend of mine in Australia, Rayanne. And the reason I'm showing this to you, it's mind-blowing. It's called Introducing the 10 Terrains of Consciousness. And it's a book that was written by a friend of mine, like I said, in Australia. And there's a YouTube channel about all of this. And what she and her partner channeled this book, and they've described really the 10 terrains, as they call them, of awareness of humans on the planet, from the ones that are most separated from source through our evolution to being reconnected with source. Wow. And the reason I'm mentioning this is, of the 10 terrains, there's only 3 people that would be buying Heelys, and for 3 completely different reasons.
Ooh.
And I'm going to give you the quickie, because again, I love integrating concepts. So when I read this, terrain number 5, which they call diamond. Terrain 4 are people that are very committed to pharmaceuticals. They're not interested at all. One of my team members asked me 2 years ago, Susan, how do you talk to people who are committed to pharmaceuticals? What do you say to them? I say, nothing. I don't waste my time talking to them at all.
Okay. Wow.
So and they won't buy this. You'll be arguing. They want proof. They're going to read all this debunking stuff. Waste of time.
Yeah.
People at Diamond are the mainstream culture. They're not necessarily us. They're the people that'll be waiting online overnight for the new iPhone, and they want the next best thing. They will buy this because it is the next best thing.
Okay.
Not necessarily. They don't know anything about resonance. They don't care. But they're the biohackers. It's entirely legitimate. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying, like, there's all the people in our world who want the next best thing. And there's a way of talking to them about that. Then the circle people are like the holistic wellness community. And they're alternative, they're more in touch with nature and, holistic. And they're going to be into this because it's really a great alternative to pharmaceutical medicine. And it is very holistic. So we're going from, germ theory to terrain theory when we go into that terrain. And then the next one is literally called spiral. And people moving towards spiral literally experience themselves in terms of frequency and resonance. And beyond that, Taurus, that's probably what Marcus is. There's so few people like that in the world that they're not a market for us. The three groups that I just described are,
Do you
and
think those ones in the group you think Marcus are in, do you think that they've also realized that they can do all that the Healy does? And so they look at it like a tool they might not even need?
no, I'm not saying that they wouldn't be interested in it. I'm just saying we're not going to be talking to those people.
Right.
So
Okay.
for
So
your business,
so
there's
few.
only there's three groups that you'll be talking to that might potentially buy a Healy from you.
Wow.
One of them is just, like mainstream, this is the next best thing. One of them is all into wellness and prevention, and the other is moving like they get frequency. And it's three
Wow.
completely different conversations. And if, like I said, the YouTube channel actually describes them very well. My friends are very good speakers. It's very entertaining. And if this resonated for you, no pun intended, I think it'd just be another very interesting perspective to add to human design and the other things that we spoke about who we are, because I'm all about the who, and how we're dealing with people, the level of conversation that we're having.
Yes, I can't wait. I think we have a couple of questions, Britton. I don't know if you still have a question by Kaylee's
Sure.
hand up before we let you go tonight, Susan.
I just wanted more contact, like information, like Susan's information, like if she had information about Ayurvedic astrology, just some of the, luckily this is being recorded so I can go back with some of the things I missed because I've had to multitask a little bit. So mainly my question was answered, but I think a lot of people had like I wanted more information on stuff too. So
to be honest, the Vedic astrology, I'm not sure where to send you. The book that I've been writing is still in process, and I've never come across this material anywhere. We really did original research. So literally, I shared a lot about it in the Ayurveda for Goddesses class. And like I said, I would be happy to put together a program for your group that would be tailored for your interests. I think this is just so fascinating. But it's not out there. I wouldn't even know where to send you for the information. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be holding out. Kelly, did you want to jump in with something?
Yeah, I actually just had a question a little ways back when we were talking about the protocol. I've had my daughter, my 8-year-old daughter, I've been having the Power of 3 protocol come up on her scans as the top resonance pretty much every time I scan her. I don't know that that's really a protocol that my 8-year-old will be going through. So I'm curious as to what kind of programs might be good as an alternative support for her. Clearly she's needing something from them. Or if there's any just some perspective or thoughts on that.
Thank you. Well, one thought that comes up is that if that's coming up on a scan and it doesn't feel like the right protocols, you could always be just sending her the frequencies from the blue dot scan. I consider those to be pretty gentle and safe. And then I'd be curious about when they come up, which programs in that group are coming up. If it's the dosha program or the zapper or what?
One was conflict and one was zapper. Those are the two that seem to come up the most often. I know.
Okay, if it was me, and again, because I live in this sort of woo-woo world, would what would be coming up for me perhaps would be to send her if the zapper protocol came up. We have this thing, trust the Healy. I would imagine it's picking up on something going on in her system that you might not want to ignore. Since she's so young, what I'm thinking I might do would be I would ask my pendulum whether it would be appropriate to send her those frequencies for a short period of time and for how much, because it might be just a minute of that from the blue dot, would be the right thing.
Right, right.
If the Zappa protocol, but again, let's just think this through. If that's coming up and there's some kind of parasite, then maybe when the gastrointestinal or the toxin program, I mean, I would check the bioenergetic harmony. I
Yeah.
would ask,
She has biogenic harmony come up quite often too. So,
and in the gold program, I would think that pure would be a
yeah.
good, because again, oh, and actually, we're gonna leave off with something, because Marcus told us something else last week that was mind blowing. He actually told us how to use the programs. Okay, I'm going to share this with you. I wrote it down. It was like 2 years, and I finally heard this. And he mentioned it really casually. And when he said it, it made sense to us. And when I shared it with my team, everybody said it made sense. He said, okay, whenever you, so Kelly, does that make sense? I would say that pure, and I would try to stick with the golds probably. And I would probably feel comfortable sending, blue dot frequencies for a short period of time. And if it was me, I would ask the pendulum about all of those things. So I hope, okay, this is what Marcus told us. And it was so obvious. He said, okay, if you have any issue that you want to be treating with the Healy, he said, this is how you do it. You start with the obvious. Like if you're in pain, you run a pain program. He said, you start with the obvious thing, whatever it is, inflammation, the hypersensitivities program is the one that generally comes up. There's some obvious programs for many conditions that correspond to the organs or like that. So you do that one first. Then you do the gold program that would correspond to that best. So if it was pain, it would be release. If it was toxicity, it would be pure. I run care anytime I have any kind of physical or emotional trauma. That's my go-to. She said, so start with the obvious, then do the gold that would be obvious to go along with that. Then do the toxin program as the third. And the fourth, the meridian program that corresponds. And one of the other things he told us that also was music to my ears, kind of, he's working a lot more with the meridians than he is with the doshas. And they're going to expand that and have more work with the meridians. And he said, and this again made so much sense to me, he said, we can't make medical claims. So we're going to be talking in terms of the meridians. We're going to be talking about the frequencies in terms of their impact on the meridians, because that's not medical. And yet in our culture, people understand that. And I thought that is brilliant. That makes absolute sense. And for as much as I, practice Ayurveda, Chinese medicine is my treatment of choice. To me, Ayurveda is a beautiful preventive system. But I go for acupuncture, if I really go out of balance. So I love the meridians. So that's his protocol: the obvious, the gold, the toxin program, and the meridian program. And we all went like, duh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So from the horse's mouth in San Francisco, I heard that last week. So, wow, we covered a lot more ground tonight than I was expecting.
Yes.
Thank you for being so open. This is so fun.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Susan, and sharing all your wisdom. It was just really special to have you here tonight.
You are welcome. I should shared my contact information, and Robin will do that as well. So getyourjuicyback.com. My email address is just my name, Susan Joyce Proctor. You'll see there the information about my consultations and that program. And I'm sure we will be speaking.
And I'll share
further.
the link with all of them to the goddess program that you're talking about, the class that they could still purchase right now with you
that
as
one,
well.
as I said, that's a recording, but
Yeah.
I'm happy what I did for all of the live participants is I got their birth information and I shared with them what their chart was and what their rising sign was, so that it was very meaningful, because with the category of the 3 that I shared with you, that really is a generalization to try and fit all of humanity into 3 And one of the things that I realized over time didn't work is that kapha is both water and earth. And classical Ayurveda always assumes that it's water. And some people are earth and they're dry. And it just didn't fit.
Yeah.
So
very exciting.
the 12 types that I came up with actually fit everybody
Ooh.
in a way that is amazing. And I've had a lot of people go like, this never made sense to me before. And now it does. So
that's amazing.
Like I said, we're going to look back on this from the future and go like, oh my God, remember back in May of 2022 when we first met and we were first talking about the dosha programs.
Yes, it's going to be a beautiful memory to look back on.
Well, thank you, Empress. Thank you, everybody. It was lovely to connect with all of you. Robin, thanks for reaching out.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you all who have joined us and watched the recording. Take care, everyone.
Good night. Bye for now.
Thank you, guys.